Mom moved me out of the house at 8 to accommodate her new family. I took possession of the house. I am 24. Let me start off by saying I was kicked out by my mom because she needed to impress her new husband. Okay, if kicked out seemed a little harsh, we can say she moved me out of my own home and made me live with my grandparents on my father's side. I have all the good memories until my dad was alive. Unfortunately, we lost him when I was 7. As a kid, I felt devastated. I was very close to my dad, and sending him off inside a coffin broke my heart. I still remember that moment very clearly, and it saddens me till date. While I was still processing the loss, my mom showed up with another man and insisted I call him Dad. I was like, no way. I don't know if I was right or wrong, but I just didn't feel right to call him Dad, just within a few months of my own father's demise. After that first meeting, I often found him in my mom's bedroom, and it was difficult to see how quickly my mom had moved on. She didn't even wait a year before bringing my dad's replacement to the house. I was not ready to accept him as my dad's replacement. I had recently turned 8 when they planned their beautiful wedding. They had put up a pretty huge wedding for second-timers, but none of my business. She left me with my grandparents as she went on her honeymoon. A month passed, but she didn't turn up. I kept asking my grandparents when mom would come to pick me up, but they didn't have any answer. Then suddenly, she showed up one day. I was so excited to see her after so long. I rushed to hug her, but she had brought all my belongings to dump me at my grandparents'. I was heartbroken to say the least. I lived with my grandparents until my high school. I was happy with them. My mom used to show up sometimes, only to tell me how much she loved me and cared for me. Sometimes, I used to question her. If she loved me so much, why had she dumped me at my grandparents'? She had no answer. She would try to cover it up by saying, "Oh, your grandparents are turning old. They need a helping hand to run their groceries and dump out their trash." It was much later that she admitted the actual reason. She had given my room to her stepchildren. Bill, mom's husband, had 2 children who moved into our house with Bill after their wedding. A mom prioritized her new over me. It was natural for me to get resentful over so. Eventually, I stopped bothering her. After high school, I moved out from my grandparents, but I still visited them often. They were kind of saviors for me. They raised me. If not for them, my childhood would have been ruined. I'm now 24. After working for a year in marketing, I thought of starting my own venture. I needed capital for that, so I thought of leasing my house. Oh, if I didn't mention this before, there's a bummer on the way for my mom and her loving family. Actually, the house in which they are living belongs to me. Yeah, that's right. My dad made a will on his deathbed, and he very meticulously gave me every penny he had, including the house. I was a kid when his lawyer read his will after his funeral, but with the look on my mother's face, I can surely say that she was not liking it at all. Later, I got to know that she tried several times to overturn the will, but she lost it every time. My dad had made the will very precise, that the house would be mine, but I could sell or lease it only after I turned 21. Until then, no one touches the property. My grandparents think that dad would have probably foreseen mom's plan, and that's why he made a rigid will, else she might have manipulated me in my childhood to give away the house to her. Last month, I called mom to inform her about my plan of leasing out the house, but she didn't answer my calls. This week, when I went to meet my grandparents, I told them I was planning to make some extra bucks from the house. They gave a weird reaction. I asked them what's the matter. They said I might not have to face a lot of resistance to vacate the house for mom because her stepdaughter is pregnant with a teenage boy who has run away from his responsibilities. Also, Bill has lost his full-time job and is working at a store in the evening. So basically, they're in a bad shape financially. Now, I really don't know what to do. I mean, I also need that house now. I have quit my job, and I need capital to start my business. I must say, OP, your mom is quite the knack for dodging responsibility. I mean, moving you out of your own house just to make room for her new hubby clan. Talk about cold-hearted real estate management. And let's not forget about dear old dad pulling a plot twist from beyond the grave with that ironclad will. It's like he knew his ex-wife's game plan better than she did herself. Now, that's what I call poetic justice. But hey, don't get too comfortable in that landlord's chair just yet. It looks like mom and her merry band of misfits aren't going down without a fight. And they've got a pregnant stepdaughter and a jobless husband in their corner. Talk about adding insult to injury. But did she cut you a break when she dropped you off at your grandparents'? No. Update 1. It became quite dramatic, picking up from where I left. Like I said, my grandparents informed me that Mom and her family are going through a rough patch, so they might not vacate my house. I thought I'll inform Mom about my plan and give them a few months' time to put their life together before I was thinking of giving a month's notice. But knowing their situation, I thought of giving 3 to 4 months. Since Mom was not answering a call, I went to meet her at home. The house was nothing as before, and neither was my mom. Both had a cold vibe. Maybe she had sensed the motive behind my visit. On seeing me at the door, she gave out a fake smile and half-hearted hug. Mind you, we were meeting after almost a decade. Yeah, she's out visiting me after I entered my teenage years. Yeah, I had turned bitter towards her. Why would I not? Even though we met after so many years, she didn't bother to ask me how I'd been. She was not interested in knowing anything about me. It was like, oh, you're here. Must have been something important that brought you to my doors. The pleaser in me said, oh no, nothing important. Just came to check on you. It's been a long time. She smiled and said, sure, it is. A wave of silence followed for another 5 minutes until I stood up to leave. It was definitely unpleasant. I didn't feel welcomed at all. Besides, Mommy's pregnant stepsister was also home, and she too gave me a very bad look, as if I were there to create some sort of trouble. For a moment, I dropped the idea of taking back the house. I explored other means of arranging the money for my business, but Mom crossed all limits of narcissism. Last week was my dad's 15th death anniversary. My grandparents held a small prayer ceremony at the church. Since I was in town, I decided to have a decent ceremony by feeding the poor and giving off some gifts to the underprivileged children. I invited my friends and relatives for the prayer. I emailed the invite to my mom as well, but she didn't respond. When I traced the history of the mail, I found she hadn't opened it. This was my first mail to her. I thought it went as spam or something, so I showed up at her house again. This time, Mom wasn't at home. My stepsister, Brenda, answered the door. No hello, no greetings. A straight question slapped on my face. You're back again. What's the matter? I said I was here to meet Mom. She said, with the way she spoke to you last time, do you think she wants to meet you again? She said it so bluntly that I couldn't get what she said, and I spit it out that I was here to invite Mom for the prayer ceremony of my dad. She chuckled in my face and said, that was like centuries ago. You're still holding that up? Get over it. I said, excuse me, he was my dad, and it's none of your business to comment. She rolled her eyes and pushed off to her room. I sat there like an idiot for a few more minutes, and then I left a note for Mom on the table. I asked her to call me back. She called me the next day, and I told her about the prayer ceremony. She remained quiet for a minute, and then said she would not be able to make it because she had to take Brenda for a checkup. That was a bummer. I mean, she could have said she would try, but turning it down outrightly was disappointing. I replied sarcastically, yeah, of course. They are your priority. We are now to you. So be it. Good luck raising that narcissistic woman and her bastard child. She flipped out that I used that word. I said, why would I be nice to her when she was so mean to me? She made fun of my emotions to defend her mom and said it was natural for her to get furious. You can't talk about the dead in front of a pregnant woman. You're such an insensitive dead, like your father. The moment she said that, I lost my mind. I yelled at her that she should not talk trash about my father, the way she was talking about my dead father. She said, your father died 15 years ago. Goddamn, get over it. I said, sure, the way you did within weeks or maybe days, who knows? You know what? You don't need to come. My father would not like your prayer after seeing your true colors. I hung up the phone after saying this. The same day, I hired a lawyer and started the process of sending a legal notice of eviction. The lawyer took some 15 days to validate my dad's will and send the notice to Mom. As expected, when the eviction notice reached them, she freaked out. Apparently, she never thought I would go to such lengths to exact my revenge on her for not attending Dad's prayer ceremony. I laughed at her voicemail and blocked her when she couldn't contact me anywhere. She showed up at my grandparents' place. I wasn't there at the time. Oh yeah, I'm living with my grandparents again until I put my life together. My mother requested my grandparents to convince me to withdraw the eviction notice. My grandparents are calm and nice people. That's why they didn't throw her out. They said they don't have any say in this. It's my property, and I get to do anything I want. Fair enough. The answer didn't go well to her, and she blamed my grandparents for raising me as an entitled brat. Really? Why was she smoking when she said that? I asked my grandma why she did not say anything to my narcissistic mom. My grandparents were like, "We don't want to mess up with such a woman." I said, "I want to mess up, and now I'm not going to let them live in my house for one extra day." I gave the eviction notice as per the tenant's law in the country, though they are not tenants. They ain't paying any rent to me. On top of that, I'm the one paying the property taxes every year, so legally, I'm entitled to throw them out right away. My grandparents are God-fearing people. They talked me out of this idea. They said, "For the sake of the Lord, give them that 1 month to find another shelter. There's a pregnant woman there, and we shouldn't pull her into the streets." I sighed that she didn't need any help either. She was equally toxic. My grandpas were like, "So be it. She might be a sinner, but her unborn is not. Don't be cruel to that little creature." They convinced me to wait. Else, I was adamant to evict them on that very day. The next day, I got a call from Mom. I ignored it. She did the same to me when I was calling her. She messaged me to talk. "It's urgent." I responded to check out my calendar and meet me at grandparents' at my open slot. This didn't go well with her. She sent a long reply that I was trying to throw weight on her. What did I do with her 5 paragraphs mail? Nothing, that's right. I didn't respond. She might have got the hint that I was not going to give in to her pressure throughout my childhood. Whenever I used to cry or throw tantrums for going home, instead of loving me, she would scold me and ask me to behave. She would petrify me to be a good lad and not throw tantrums. This was her parenting style, and it worked. In order to keep her happy and not mess up with her, I would stop sobbing. But after she left, I would sulk at the corner of the house for hours. Not anymore. It's time for her to sulk, but sadly, she won't have a corner to herself. So, she came to meet me, and I deliberately made her wait for an hour. She got anxious. I asked my grandparents to stay out of it. She kept asking them about me. They said they didn't know and swiftly pushed back to the room. When I arrived to meet her, she gave me a look of, "Well, where were you?" "I've been waiting here for an hour," but she didn't say anything. Anything. She sat there with a straight face. People in her situation would have tried to please me, but she remained solid on her grounds. She said, "Okay, let me start. I can't sit here forever. I have jobs to do." I murmured under my breath, "Oh, sure you do. Finding a house is a difficult job." She gave me an annoyed look and said, "What is this notice about?" I replied, "It is written in English. I'm sure you can read that. Or do you want me to do that for you?" She was absolutely pissed off. She threw the notice at my face and said she was not going to vacate the house on the basis of some stupid notice. After she was done yelling, I said, "Then let's wait and witness the repercussions of not following the court order." She was like, "I gave birth to you. Don't you try to outsmart me. That house is of my husband, and no one can throw me out from there." I said, "Surely, a legal heir can?" I was responding to her calmly in order to piss her off, and she did get pissed off. But the moment she referred to my dad as her husband, I lost my mind. "Really? You have the audacity to call him your husband when you skipped his prayer, saying he was history? You don't deserve his house. You're just a squatter, and I'm going to free that house from all the leeches." She stood up and said she was done being nice to me, and now I'll have to deal with her lawyer. I laughed and said, "Sure, by all means. We still have 20 days to go. Let's see what she pulls up from her sleeves." Hey, it's not all doom and gloom. You got your trusty eviction notice ready to roll like a legal ninja, serving up justice on a silver platter. And the best part? Watching Mom squirm like a cat on a hot tin roof when she realizes she's been served a heaping helping of reality. Let's take a stroll down memory lane, shall we? From the moment she replaced her dad with a new husband before the ink was even dry on his eulogy, it was clear that her priorities were as twisted as a pretzel and a tornado. She then had the audacity to kick you to the curb and give your room away like last season's fashion, all in the name of impressing her new hubby. Talk about a textbook example of misplaced loyalty. And let's not forget her stellar parenting techniques. Instead of offering comfort and support when you needed it the most, she opted for tough love and cold indifference, leaving you to pick up the pieces of your shattered childhood while she gallivanted off into the sunset. But now the tables have turned, and it's time for mom to reap what she's sown. Update 2. I got the house after a lot of tussle, like I mentioned in my earlier post. I gave 30 days notice to mom and her family to evict the house. She came to me and tried to gaslight the entire thing. I shut her down, and she leaves. The next series of events was nothing but pure narcissism by them. Could you believe that her stepdaughter, Brenda, came charging at me, and on top of that, a threat to press her harassment case on me? She was playing her pregnancy victim card like, I can do anything I want because I am carrying a child inside of me. I said, woman, pregnancy is not a ticket to get away with your nuisance. She tried to mess up with my grandparents until we showed her the camera installed across the house. I said, one more time you set your foot here, and I'm going to get you arrested. Then comes my mother to defend her golden stepdaughter. She accused me of abusing and mentally torturing her pregnant Brenda. She said she is going to sue me for this. I said, sure, let the judge decide based on the camera footage. When she could no longer went through force, she mellowed down. She started sobbing and said, what did she do wrong in raising me that I became a self-centered individual? She started blaming herself for not raising me properly. She, in fact, brought my dead father in between and said it was his fault that he died so early and didn't give me a proper upbringing. I said, hold on. If anyone is to be blamed, it has to be you, not for raising me wrong because you never raised me. I'm raised by my grandparents, and they did a pretty good job. You should feel sorry for abandoning me, but you know what? Glad you didn't raise me. I see how badly you've raised your stepdaughter. I brought her up teen pregnancy of thing. Also, I know I shouldn't have done moral policing, but in the moment of rage, I did. Naturally, she got furious at me. I realized I had overstepped my boundary, so I remained quiet after that. I said I didn't want to get into any further talks. I just want my property back. I have let them live there for free for so many years now. I really need it. I tried to make her understand in my situation that I had quit my job and needed money to start my business, so I would be leasing the house. She flipped out that I was throwing them out only to let other strangers live there. I said, the other strangers are going to pay me rent. If you agree to pay, you can live there. She freaked out that I was bringing money into the family matters. I said, there isn't any family here. You threw me away like a pile of garbage and hardly checked on me. My birthdays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. You barely showed up, and even when you did, you made me feel that you were doing me a favor. What kind of mother does that? A mother like you, right? She tried all means to manipulate me. Gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and her usual ones, anger. When she understood that I got no chills, she left. You guys are thinking that they vacated the house after that. A big no, they didn't. Mom's loser husband was yet to come into the picture. That craphead man sent a voicemail. Dude, you don't know who you're messing with. I can deadlift you and make you plead for your life. One punch on your face, and you're going to forget about the house. You should open my door again, and I'm going to knock you out. That dude is big, and he loves to flaunt it. I don't know much about him, but my grandparents cautioned me not to mess with him. He is a bully, sure, but he is a dummy. He laid out the evidence against himself by threatening me over voicemail. I didn't respond to him because I wanted a bigger dude to handle him. The cops on the supposed day of eviction? I went to the station and registered a case of threats. I had solid evidence. My lawyer walked down with me to the station and requested the cops to accompany us to the eviction. Initially, they were not ready to come. They said, call us if they cause trouble. But we didn't want to deal with the squatters by ourselves. Some cash helped in getting them on board, and they accompanied us. When I reached the house with my lawyer, Mom, Bill, and Brenda, started cussing us. Her loser husband even came out with a hockey stick, but as soon as they saw the cops' vehicle behind our car, he stepped back. The cops showed them the eviction notice and asked them to leave. They were so confident of chasing me out that they didn't even pack their stuff. They asked the cops to give them a further 1 month's time. The cops looked at me, and I said, no way. Now, after all these threats, They started using Bryn's pregnancy to buy a few more days, but I put my foot down and said, now. I got some weird looks from the cops that I was insensitive, but I was following the legal route, so no one had any say. They further bargained to give me a day's time. I said, 3 hours from now. They gave me looks of bitterness. Bill even tried to brush his shoulder against me with red eyes. The cops yelled, get moving. More of packing and less of giving looks. We all left after that. The cops asked them to hand over the keys at the station from where I would pick it up. We had to pay the cops extra bucks to facilitate this, and it was completely worth it. Who wants to deal with those squatters? My lawyer suggested I take a restraining order against them on the property in case they want to come back and harass me or the tenants. They're well capable of doing that. We took it, and the cops shared a copy of the restraining order with them and explained the consequences of violating it. The press on their faces was unmissable. So, finally, I got the house and I have put it up for lease. I hope to get a good deal and am able to start my business as soon as possible. Enough of dealing with the craphead people. This would mostly be my last update unless they come back to mess with me again. Thanks for reading this and supporting me throughout. First, Mom tries to pull the sympathy card. Then her precious stepdaughter jumps into the fray, waving around her pregnancy like it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Sorry, Brenda, but having a bun in the oven doesn't excuse being a royal pain in the backside. Then, dear old Bill, the lumbering oaf, who thinks he's tough stuff with his hockey stick, threats. News flash, buddy, you're about as intimidating as a wet noodle. Here's to you, OP, who turned eviction into an art form and made squatters showing look like child's play. And as for Mom and her sorry excuse for a family, well, they've learned the hard way that you don't mess with someone who's got justice, determination, and a darn good lawyer on their side. So long, farewell, adieu. What are your thoughts? Share them with us in the comments below.